Hi, everybody, and welcome to another story of hope. And I'm really excited. Today, I have Cassie Blitz on, and we're going to talk a little bit about anxiety and mental health, but also then move over and talk about how having this understanding has really transformed you as a business owner and an entrepreneur. And Cassie is a business coach for online coaches and consultants. And I'm really excited. So I'm going to pass it over to you to share your story.
Thank you. Hi. So I'm going to share my personal experience with anxiety. I've been in your world for probably 6 months. It has been the only thing that's ever really helped me at this level. So I'll share a little bit of my personal experience because I did struggle for a long time with postpartum OCD, is what I call it. I don't, have a label necessarily, and anxiety, panic, all those things. But then also as an entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur for 8 years, full time for 5. I've applied a lot of the principles to my business, but I, so let me just, I'll tell my story. And then if you need to stop me and ask questions, you can. But um, I've always been anxious, which I feel like you probably hear from most of the people come on here. But I just remember being a very anxious child, very anxious teenager. And then all of a sudden, when I was 17, I had my first panic attack completely out of the blue. So that was the first time I ever really had an experience like that. I was just very type A up until then. So I had my first panic attack at 17. And really, that kind of came and went throughout my life, panic attacks, general anxiety for probably like all through college. So 6, 7 years. But it was never so bad that I felt like I needed to see a therapist or get on medication. I always knew it would pass. And after a while, honestly, panic attacks became something that I just treated like no big deal. So what? And that's how I am now. It's like, whatever, if I have a panic attack, who cares? I'll just do it and I'll be fine. But then I had my first son. He's 5 now, but when I had him, I was pregnant with him, probably 6 months pregnant, and I had intrusive thoughts. Now, I didn't know what those were at the time. I didn't know OCD even existed. But I just remember driving down the street and having all these really harm related thoughts. My OCD tends to be very harmful thoughts. Scared the crap out of me. Like I called my best friend, I'm bawling, I'm crying. I'm like, I really thought it was a problem that I was thinking those kinds of thoughts. And especially because they were out of the blue and I just so against what I really wanted, which we know that's, how intrusive thoughts work. So that would always kind of ebb and flow. And when I had my first son, I had a really, really tough um, birthing experience. So it was really weird. The whole time I was giving birth to my first son, I was in and out of panic attacks the entire time. I don't necessarily know why. It's just something felt very unsafe about that birthing experience. I did not feel safe in the room I was in. Like something about it, my body just translated as like, this is not okay. And yeah, I spent the whole time I was giving birth, which was like 8 or 9 hours, just every 15 minutes, a wave of panic and an attack, a wave of panic and an attack. It was very traumatic, as you can imagine. And I didn't know what was happening. I was like, why? I don't understand. I thought maybe it was the epidural. I didn't know. Um, but I brought my son home and it just kind of didn't really let up from there until he was about, I remember coming home and Googling, like, I think it was like a month postpartum, and I'd get on Google, like, am I supposed to like being a mom? Like, I looking back, I realize now I probably had some postpartum depression. I was definitely anxious. I knew that. But I was Googling, like, why am I not happy? Why don't I love this? Why am I anxious and stressed all the time? I just didn't understand why I felt that way. And I thought something was very wrong. But after about a year of postpartum, it kind of just started to go back to normal. And I think that's part of what I know you talk about a lot about with like distraction. For me, having a business and work that I love was a very healthy distraction because I was able to give my mind something to do other than worry.
Yeah.
So I was able to kind of come out of it naturally. But then I had, fast forward, I was like doing okay. I did a lot of exposure therapy. So I did try to do that route before I found you. And I had a therapist and I tried that. That wasn't working. I never tried medication or anything, but I tried a lot of diets. So I definitely resonate with your experience with like, maybe it's something I'm eating. So I cut out caffeine. I stopped eating a bunch of stuff. I could not watch the news or movies. Instant trigger, instant panic. So there were months where I just, yeah, my husband, like, you can't have the TV on if there's something even remotely triggering. And looking back, it didn't even have to be anything that crazy. I just couldn't. I realize now how much I was like avoiding, very much in avoidance, because the OCD, as soon as I saw something that was scary, the harm thoughts would come and I would just be afraid. So then I tried the exposure therapy kind of like way of doing things, and I felt a little bit of relief, but it definitely didn't feel like it lasted very long. And it also felt really painful. I was like, does it have to be this hard to like get better and heal from this? But eventually it just kind of like anxiety does, it just kind of naturally went away. And I was like, oh, I must be past it. I must be better. And then had my second son. That birthing experience was much better because I did hypnobirthing. So I like hypnotized myself and gave birth naturally. And that was beautiful. And honestly, my whole first year postpartum was great. Yeah. And then one morning, so last year, I remember it was January, about a week into January. One morning I sat down on my couch to meditate because I always meditated every morning, and I had a whoosh of panic, and it was intense and it was terrifying. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, why do I feel this way? And from there, it just spiraled, and it was like the darkest, hardest, probably 6 months I've ever been through in terms of just the first time I ever experienced derealization. I didn't know what it was, but I just remember it was probably a month into like really bad panic, really bad anxiety. And one day I woke up and I'm playing with my kids, and all of a sudden the world just like didn't look real. It's almost like my hand would be in front of my face, but it felt like this isn't my hand, and this isn't the world. Like the world looked different. It was so bizarre. So then I was like, am I going crazy? You know, definitely had a fear of that. Still struggle with that, to be honest. Um, but yeah, that lasted about 6 months, and then I found you. So that was my story, long story in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, would you share, not to be like, oh, what was helpful that I shared, but what, taking even me out of the equation, because it seems like you led up to and then you found me. But for people that maybe are new to what I share, what helped you? Was What insights did you have about derealization? Like, how did your experience with panic or with derealization, or I know you said you're not maybe exactly where you want to be about the fear of going crazy or insane, but like what started to change and help some of that kind of fall away?
Yeah. So I only experienced derealization for that one time.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I never, thankfully, but I did have obviously like constant panic, constant anxiety. The worst thing was the OCD. Just the intrusive thoughts were just, they were nonstop. And I was doing a lot of avoidance behaviors and mental checking behaviors, things like that, which part of what brought that on, which kind of goes into entrepreneurial space, is I was, I did a lot of like law of attraction studying, manifestation studying, and especially in the coaching industry, which I'm in, you see it everywhere. If you're not creating clients, get in the vibe. If you're not creating what you want, you're not in the right frequency. If you're not manifesting your dream life, then you must not be in the same frequency and alignment. So I studied that for years. And as I studied it, the more and more I studied it, trying to make my life look the way I thought it needed to look, the worse my anxiety got, the worse my OCD got, because I became afraid of my own thoughts. Because law of attraction, if anybody's not familiar, it basically teaches like you attract what you think. You think about it, you're going to create it in your reality. And so there was a lot of control in my inner world because I felt like if I let anything slip, I'm going to create it. And if I want things to go the way I want them to go, I need to make sure I'm always feeling the right things and thinking the right things. And that's what really, really, really started to just build up in my system and like really mess me up. And when I realized, when it came across you, Lily, really what happened was I realized I had this insight of like all of that, in my opinion, and especially with the like insights I've had, I'm like, it's just not true. I don't think something and it immediately becomes real, or it manifests that reality into my life instantaneously or even at all. Like, how many thoughts do we have that just are random, dumb thoughts?
Yeah.
And so you were the first person to really help me see my thinking actually is kind of random and like pretty unimportant, to be honest. And so that was the first insight. It was realizing I don't need to take my thinking seriously. And honestly, as simple as it sounds, the best thing I learned from you was if I'm feeling bad, just don't take my thinking too seriously. And don't, but I also don't need to fix it. Whereas before, I was waking up like an hour early every morning, tapping, meditating, doing breath work, all your stuff, right? I was like doing manifestation techniques, journaling, I mean, hypnosis, trying to reprogram my subconscious, all this stuff because I was like, I need to be perfect because if I'm perfect, then everything will be okay. And I can't have these thoughts that aren't perfect because then it's something really bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that was the biggest insight was my thinking isn't that important. It's very random. And also, if I feel bad, I don't need to do anything. I don't need to fix it. I don't need to like do a bunch of self-coaching because I was also studying self-coaching, like Brooke Castillo, where she teaches like,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that can be great at times, but it can very quickly become a weapon. So I
Yeah.
was like trying to do all this thought replacement.
I know. I found Carol Lowenthal and then Brooke Castillo through her and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it
I'm
was
not.
not. No, I definitely don't recommend. I think yeah, I'm sure I can do that occasionally now. Like just this morning, I had a thought about my business and I thought, I want to shift my perspective. Sometimes I'll sit down and I'll write down my thoughts and then I'll pick a perspective that works for me, but never anymore from a place of, oh my God, I can't think that. It's literally just from a place of like, I think I could view this in a more empowering light. I wonder how I could shift this in my mind or pick a perspective that is empowering without having to change the situation. Or if I think those thoughts, that's okay too. If I think
Yeah.
negative thoughts, like it's fine.
Yeah. Well, I think you have an understanding of thought now, and I got
Yeah.
a bill, from AT&T and T, and it was really high or whatever. And I was like, what's going on? And, so I was going to wait to call about it after I dropped my daughter off. So in this feeling, like for the 20 minutes I'm driving her, and then it occurred to me, like a different perspective on it, which was like, hey, even if it isn't a misunderstanding, you'll just pay the bill. Like you need to be in this bad feeling. And I'm like, oh yeah. And then it was like, and who knows if it might work out. And I just got in a better feeling. Like that occurred to me, but
Yeah.
like, there's not fear. There's not like, because then, and then actually it did work out. It was all fine. And I didn't have to suffer for 20 minutes. Like, because
Yeah.
I caught myself kind of imagining how the conversation would go. And then I got on to myself. And it's like, I think that's where, when we can understand the nature of thought and understand that maybe our thought isn't helpful or true, we can
Yeah.
pause and then up can come some more healthy thoughts about our business or about, but yeah, it's not like I can't ever have a negative thought.
Yeah.
And I think I'm so happy we're having this conversation because I haven't on the podcast or in much detail talked about manifestation and law of attraction. And I'm like into all of that. Like I had a long, but very, very simply, like I had a long time of like Abraham Hicks and The Secret. And I thought that would be, and Joe Dispenza.
Hmm.
And I did The Secret and I did like the other secret book. And every day I'd get up and I would do this. And it was like, I really, really resonate where like, if I think perfectly, I'm going to be perfect. And also this danger of if I'm not perfect, that it just made me have so much more thinking and I
Hmm.
overcomplicated it. And I was thinking about myself and my thoughts so much. And so I think
Yeah.
But like sometimes I'm still into like I might still listen to a podcast from Manifestation Babe and it just gets me in a good vibe about
Yeah.
business. But when it comes to like mental health or thoughts or anything, like none of that is very helpful for me because it just makes it too serious and I don't really want to take my thinking so seriously. And we
Yeah.
don't need to because then we're like the thought police where it's like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I have someone who's in the community and she just has a bunch of normal thoughts like we all do. Very, very normal. They're not even intrusive. Sometimes they just might be a whatever thought, but she's like, oh my God, I can't believe that I even thought that. But, you know, um, just because we have a thought doesn't mean anything about us. Like we can have a
Yeah.
mean thought about someone like, oh, she's ugly. And that doesn't mean, and then the next thought might be, oh my God, she's beautiful. Like, I don't know. I don't mean to go off
Yeah.
on a tangent, but it's like when we zoom in, we're so aware of all these random thoughts that sometimes aren't even our thoughts. Like they just pop in.
Yeah. And something else I noticed that I had an insight about last night is sometimes I'll have thoughts that come in based on my physiology. So what I mean by that is like there was a loud noise in the middle of the night. My son accidentally hit his foot on the wall and it made a loud noise. And as soon as I heard that noise, my body got a shock of adrenaline because it scared me. And immediately the thoughts, the intrusive thoughts I'm used to, they're not new. They've been there on repeat for years, were there. And I thought, oh, sometimes my brain is just responding to my physiology. And when I'm physically scared, I can expect it. It's like one of those symptoms that you can expect. I can expect for me if I'm feeling scared or anxious or whatever because it's a loud noise or somebody scares me, I already know like, okay, these thoughts are going to probably happen. And it's, it kind of makes sense. Like, of course, my body's going to give me, or my brain's going to give me those thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then I think you see it as predictable, where
Mhm.
it's like if we know it's predictable, oh, they might come and then they're going to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I really love everything that you just shared. Um, well, and so I mean, now we could even go in to business if you want. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Cause so it all flows together, but the, the law of attraction stuff and the Joe Dispenza and all that, really the other insight I had, Lily, was that I am not broken and there's nothing wrong with me. I don't think I ever consciously thought that, but I believed it deep inside. And I thought if I could just get the right person to help me fix what's wrong with me, then I'll have everything that I want and I'll be who I need to be to create what I want and I'll be good at all these things. I'll be good enough, I'll be worthy. And then I think it's around the time I found you and I joined the membership, I was just like, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, there's genuinely, and I don't believe there's anything wrong with anybody.
yeah.
All of this fixing, and for what? It's like chasing my own tail. There's nothing to
Yeah.
fix. That's why it's not working. There's nothing broken. You know what I mean? But it was like, you know, if you have a scab and you're just scratching, 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 it's never going to heal. That was me to myself, only I didn't even have a scab. I'm just scratching and making a wound where there wasn't one kind of thing. So that was another big insight I had. And I also remember listening to one of your calls and what is her name?
Oh, Hannah?
Chance?
Oh,
No, she's written a lot of books. Chanas.
oh, Hannah Studley.
Is that how you say
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Chana. Hannah.
Yes. Okay. She said something like, and she said it in a flippant way. And she was just like, I just hope you know that your mind is a safe place. And she said it flippantly, like randomly on a call. And I just was like bawling. Like nobody's ever told me that in my whole life. I never felt like it was a safe place.
Oh,
And
wait.
now,
No, was it Sarah? Oh wait, because Hannah Studley, but I think maybe, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sarah had that same insight, but she's like a client.
it was somebody who was teaching as a
Okay.
guest expert.
Okay. I didn't, yeah, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, you're fine. But basically, that was like just hearing somebody say that was very healing. And even now, when I'm scared of my own thinking, I'm like, my mind is a safe place. And I just remind myself that. And if I'm really quiet, even for just a minute, I can get under the thoughts and I can like find this place inside where I'm just very peaceful.
Yeah.
Most of the time now, I can get there pretty quick, but not always. And when I'm not there, I'm like, that's okay. That's basically my attitude. It's like, but that's okay. Tomorrow will be different.
Yeah. I love that because it's so real. I think we can have all these insights, and I'm the same way where like there's this grounding that, and there was one time because I'm going through perimenopause and most of the time it's fine. Like I don't really have many symptoms. But sometimes my symptoms show up in the middle of the night, which is new for me. And I woke up like just with this rush of adrenaline, and just felt really weird. Um, and somehow it kind of felt like I lost my well-being for a minute. And it was really interesting because I had had a client session like that evening. And what occurred to me was like, well, if you can't find solidness in your mind, like this is not exactly how it is, but it was like I had this image of my client. And it was like, you would not doubt her well-being. Like, why would you? Like, I'm
Mm,
not different from her. And it was really interesting because it was like her mind's a safe place. She has innate health, so do I. And so that was even when I felt like, oh, maybe I'm the exception just for a moment. It was like,
yeah.
and then like sometimes, yeah, if I'm ruminating about something, I'll know there's nothing to solve. I can let it go. But one time I couldn't. And then it occurred to me, if you can't let it go, let it be. And it was like,
Mm,
and that brought me this piece of like, oh, it's fine if like this
yeah.
experience is okay too. I can, and then there's ease with just letting an experience be there. It doesn't mean that, oh, now I'm going to instantly have peace. Like I had peace even being like, my head's a little noisy. Okay.
Yeah. 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 And I'll be honest, I can go months. Like I probably went like 2.5 months without any symptoms, nothing. And then the past week, I would say I had like one really weird day where I felt really off, a little bit here and there, but it's just, I know that's also normal. Like that's life is going to ebb and flow. I think that's, I don't know. I'm not worried about it. I don't need to be completely symptom free for the rest of my life. I can trust that if I feel anxious or I have panic or a panic attack or whatever, I'm like, I trust my innate wisdom. And like you said, I think the three principles has really helped me realize this was the three principles is the first and only actually teachings where you pointed to innate health. I've never heard that. And I don't think anybody else teaches it.
Yeah,
And so that was just so refreshing.
I agree. And I mean, and I don't know if somebody else had, or there's other, uh, but something, me not being broken, having innate health, and also just not even me, everybody, people
Everybody.
sitting
Yeah.
in a mental hospital, like everybody's sitting in the middle of innate health. And also that's where we return to. After a
Yeah.
panic attack, we return to balance. And it was like shining this light on our innate health. And, um, and when, because you said, if I could just get the right person to help me, when I think with innate health, we realize, oh, that's me. I
Yeah.
have this inner coach. I have this inner wisdom that is just right there, always
Yeah.
underneath the noise. Like, and I really loved how you saw how you weren't broken. There was nothing to fix. And it's kind of even like how some people can just get really lost in like that diet cycle too. And they look at their body so closely when they're just beautiful and they're perfect just as they are. But then we just get too zoomed in and then really have an innocent misunderstanding of it all. And we can feel broken because we're thinking about ourselves so much. And we're just having this overreaction to a normal human experience, which I think a lot of people that maybe have a heightened experience of anxiety, they overreact to what's normal ebbs and flows of like moods or tiredness. And then when we get our equilibrium, we're like, oh, me being in my well-being doesn't mean I'm happy all the time or I have the same amount of energy all the time, but we become okay with just sometimes we're tired and sometimes we
Mhm.
love to be social and like sometimes we feel a bit jittery. Like, and it's like, oh, I'm okay with this full human experience, which I think I wanted to be perfect because I was so so on guard for like any feelings of feeling off. If it was like, tell me the perfect diet to eat, because I was under this illusion. If I meditated perfectly, like very similar to you, if I meditated, if like I was just going to just be like, I don't know, an enlightened Buddha who was always
Yeah.
kind, always helpful, just rainbows and peace and like no hunger, no cravings, no low
Yeah.
moods. And it was like, wait, I can have all of that and be really peaceful and a human at peace with living life, which sometimes includes being irritated and jittery and happy and calm and bored. And it's like we just get to be normal, which
Yeah.
we've always worked.
I did all the dieting and food stuff, struggled with restrictive eating, been down that road too. Cause yeah, it's like the same pattern just applied itself to my health, and then it applied itself to my business big time. And so everything I was doing, yeah, it was the same thing in my business, like just a hyper fixation on control and trying to make everything right so that then it would work the way I needed it to work. And I don't do any of that now. And I'm just like, it reminds me of that quote, when I accept myself as I am, then I can change.
Mm.
And so I feel that way about my thoughts and my emotions. It's like when I can accept them as they are, then they'll change. But even if they don't, whatever. Like I don't, it's not that big of a deal. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's like that saying I heard somebody say in your membership, learn to love what you hate.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that. I'm like, I can learn to love what I hate. You know, it's not what makes it painful is our resistance. And when you just let that go, it's really not so bad. Like, yeah, it's not my favorite feeling to be anxious. I don't like
Yeah.
love it, but it's also like my resistance to it is what made it so painful. If I just accept it, it's really not so bad.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and with the seeing people, so to kind of apply this to business for anybody listening, even if you're not an entrepreneur, I think this will be helpful. I had a really big insight too around coaching my clients, because as a business coach, I work one to one with women or men who are building online businesses. And so, what really helped me become an even better coach and space holder was realizing that they have their own innate health. So, if they're really struggling with something, I don't have to take it as seriously as I used to and be like, oh my God, I need to fix them and save them and all of that. But the other thing it really helped me realize was that if they're really in a down and out way, it's only ever their thinking. And I can always point them back to that. So if they come to me and they're like, oh my God, this is happening, that's happening, I'm having all these thoughts, I'm having imposter syndrome, whatever, it's such a simple thing. Oh, it's just your thinking. Like, this isn't, I used to do all the subconscious work. I'm trained in NLP, if you know what that is.
I do.
And
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm trained in NLP, and I used to do shadow work and all that. And I think that's fun. Like, there is a time and a place, and I don't have, like, it can create great results.
Yeah.
But also, and like sometimes I think we're complicating things. Sometimes I think when I'll have clients come to me all the time and be like, I know I have this deep subconscious money pattern. I know I do. If I didn't, my business would make more money. I'd have more money. I must have some sort of deep subconscious block. And I just love being like, no, it's just thought. Like, you don't have any mysterious block. And I think that humans, we love to almost like it's so fascinating and so interesting to be like, I have a block and it's
Yeah.
mysterious. And I don't find it interesting anymore. And I
Yeah.
don't tell myself that story. I don't, if something's not working, I don't tell myself the story anymore of like, I have a block, something's wrong with me. If I could just figure this out, then it would work. I don't do that anymore, because it's never been very helpful. And I just don't find it to be true most of the time, like ever.
Yes. Well, and I think that's where if someone is like, I love to work through my blocks, great,
Mhm.
truly, truly, there are, but because I also think sometimes we think it can't be that simple though,
Yeah,
and so people,
exactly.
I need to, because I worked with a person, I've worked with so many different types of people, not as much anymore now. I'm pretty much like, this is it for me principles, but this woman, as I was healing my relationship with food in my body, this was, I don't know, 12 years ago or something. And we did virtual stuff because I'm into all of that too, where I definitely used to be more. And she was like, okay, you still have this block. And she'd read it and she'd clear the energy. And she was like, it was like thousands of dollars. And she would be like, oh, you still have this block here. Um, and nothing what made the biggest difference in my relationship with food and my body was actually just the three principles
Yeah.
understanding. I didn't work
Yeah.
specifically on it. And I had done,
No.
like, it just changed my life in so many areas where I can see, um, I don't know, but sometimes it's like, I think for me, actually, in the beginning, 6 years ago, it was a little unsatisfying. Like, and that's when I actually went back to Carol Lowenthal, or like because I couldn't, now it's so interesting and it's so engaging, but I was so used to doing so
Yeah.
much, like doing the thought work, doing like wearing crystals and essential oils and just meditating every day and doing the mantras and saying things and blocks and like doing all of that. The principles really changed my life within a few months, but then I was like, I don't know, it's a little too simple. And I went back to thought work
Same.
and certain things. And then I was like, in the Hoffman process and da 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 da. And then I went back into like thinking about myself
Yeah.
and thinking and revving everything up. And I was like, oh, it actually is that simple. And when things are simple, I feel the best. But like there was a kind of an ebb and flow because sometimes I'd be like, maybe I want to fast. Maybe I want to do this and this. Like, because it just took me a while to settle into like truly
Yeah.
seeing it is this
Yeah.
simple.
100%. I just feel like in general, most people are conditioned that anything good has to be hard. And I've actually, especially in business, and I found the actual opposite every single time. Like the more harder and complicated you're making it, the less results you're going to get, but also that's not the path. Like it's if it feels very, very hard and complicated, like your business, for example, something needs to be considered about that because you're making it hard. You're making it harder than it needs to be, guaranteed. And we do this with our body, we do this with our business, we do this with our mental health, everything.
Yeah. Well, and Sid Banks said, if it's complicated, it's the intellect. If it's simple,
Yeah,
it's spirit, and
exactly.
Um, but also simplicity to me, also we get to make it as complicated as we want to. It's everyone gets to say like, but also whatever. Um, what was I gonna say there? Like, I used to be driven much more by my intellect. Like I couldn't believe that. I also would make up this story. Well, I have more mental illness. Like it has to be complicated for me. Like I would see my ex-husband who
Oh,
would stay up late and smoke weed and eat snacks and drink a coffee and just wake up. And I'd be like, that's not me. Like I had this story that I was so different that I had built up for this long time. I can't just stay up. I can't be on my phone, and I would wear blue light blocking glasses and never watch the TV and unplug the Wi-Fi and da 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 da. And it was so much, but it was like, I thought, well, I'm different. It's simple for some people, but I am mentally ill. And also I could become even more mentally ill. And it was
yeah,
like, now that was also just an like um, I'm just as mentally well and capable of simplicity as my ex-husband, as we're all there. But it was like hard to believe that I didn't have to work so hard. And I think,
yeah,
what we both shared is like the harder I worked, the worse I often felt. And it was really confusing. And now I don't work hard at all. Um, I'm not saying I don't notice when I'm getting caught up or I don't, think about my business. But yeah, it's like even my business is successful and I don't overcomplicate it. And I really loved how you were saying how you see your clients' well-being, because then we prevent
mhm.
burnout too. I
Oh, yeah,
see,
yeah.
I never think it's on me, and at first I did. And I remember
Oh,
Dr. Pettit, my mentor,
mhm.
saying, like seeing him and taking it, because if we're heart-centered, of course we want people to have results and feel good. And he said, oh, you're not an agent of change. And I was like, what? you know, and um, and it went away. I was like, well, I have to do this, or like I
Yeah,
want
that was
to
me for
help
years, and I
people
did
have.
burn out back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so
because I
this.
made myself solely responsible for people's results.
Mm.
And now I just see so clearly they're experiencing their own thinking at any given moment. And it's all my job is to really, like, yes, I can coach on strategy, like there are strategics, but at the end of the day, I think about it like I'm just guiding them to their own wisdom,
Mm.
you know? that's really all I have to do. And then also another piece that settled in for me that's been huge as a business owner is choosing to see people in their power, because if I don't, I'm actually victimizing them. So if I don't see you as whole and in your well-being, I'm
Yeah.
basically saying, you need me, you're broken, you're incapable. And so I would be getting this savior role, and I would unconsciously speak to the fear in people, speak to the worry in people, speak to, and now I know I don't even need to really address those things because they're just thought and they're really not, they'll be different tomorrow. Like it's really not, it's an illusion. It's not real. I don't need to give it too much airtime because it's not there. Like I see the power in my people and I just choose to see them that way, speak to that version of them, only talk to that version of them.
Yeah. That's so amazing. Isn't it so interesting that our clients are different, but like that's what I do too, you know? And
Yeah.
it's not like this is a technique we're doing. It's like when you truly see
Yeah.
everybody has innate health, everybody has wisdom. And that's what's going to be the most powerful, whether it's an insight about business, like they know their business. And when they're in a different state of mind, they're going to have a great idea. Just as my clients, it's when they're in a great state of mind or a fine state of mind, a different state of mind, they're going to have insights um,
Yeah. It's
about
same
their
with
own
like,
mind.
sorry, what was that?
No, no, no. I just said they're going to have their own insights.
Yeah, and it's the same. So as a business coach, my area of expertise is like really helping people write really, we were just talking about this, really good copy, messaging, content. Like that's what I do. And really what I wish I could do more than anything is just help people stop thinking so fucking much, because I'm like, you're actually better at writing content and messaging and all of that than you think. But you're just thinking so hard about it that it's really making it harder than it needs to be. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it is one of the I always teach my clients called spectrum thinking. So I have them basically hold two seemingly opposite things in mind. And so those two things I want them to hold in mind are everything I post, everything I say, everything I do is enough to create the results I want in my business. And also simultaneously at the same time, I'm always getting better. I'm always learning. And most people can't hold both. So when they're trying to get better at copywriting or messaging, they're like, I'm doing it wrong. This isn't good enough. It's not going to work. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect. Just, I almost want when I'm teaching for people to let what I'm teaching wash over them and then like forget it. Because I promise your wisdom will bring it back in the moment that you need it every time.
Yes. I love that so much. And I've seen that with myself. Like and also sometimes I go back to old videos that I made like 3.5 years ago and I'm like, amazing. Most I'm like cringe. Never. Like my videos are very different, you know,
Yeah.
now. I would never make the ones I did then, ever. Most of them, like 80%. I
Yeah.
just never ever would do that. Um, but they were great then. People loved them. Now I'm at a different state and I
Yeah.
wouldn't do that. But I that's what I even said before we started recording. I never let perfect be the enemy of good, because if I do, I'm going to have so much thinking. But every day I go into the Peace from Within community and I respond to questions. And I put myself in this state of no thought. Because if I
Yeah.
do,
Isn't it
I'm going
fun?
to overthink it. And it's like I just think, oh, and I just have to clear my head, because if I'm like, oh, I want to be helpful. And that's what I saw, that me wanting to be helpful actually is unhelpful. Because if I'm like, I want to be helpful, whether it's in a session or um, responding to a post, I go into my head and I think. And so when I started to see that, then I get self-conscious and I'm thinking rather than letting wisdom flow through me. And so it's much more of a flow state of either just deep
Oh,
listening when I'm coaching, or just literally like, I don't think, and I was very much in flow answering the questions, and someone from the community did a response. Amazing answer. And I was like, I actually thought that was, but like I wasn't thinking about it. If I
yeah.
think I want it to be great, it's not.
Yeah. Same.
You're so true.
I'm like, that's a great way to describe it, is flow state. And so I'm a very prolific content creator, and obviously I'm an expert in messaging. So it's like I know all the strategy of how to write really good content and messaging, but it's interesting because it's almost like I learn it, I downloaded it, and then I just go blank. And all of my content is written in flow. I do not think about my content. Just today, I had a really good post that I thought it was good. And it went out and I was like, I wrote it while I was working out at the gym. It just comes. Like I don't think. It just I can't explain it. It's almost like I'm like I don't know. It just comes now. But that wasn't always the case. But I just practiced doing that more and more. And even now I'll have days where I'm like, oh my God, I need to post. What should I say? What do I need to say? What's the right thing to say? And then I just say, you know what? Just let it go. If you don't post, you don't post. And almost every single time it's like boom, idea, download, post it.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, like when we take the pressure off, how the floodgates can come. And it's like
Yeah.
when we get our best ideas sometimes is, or not sometimes, almost always, and I think we can think about that whether we're talking about business or just our mental health. Like the more pressure and the more serious we take it, the less in flow we are, the less creative we are. And or sometimes I think people are like, I need to get to the bottom of it and I need to solve it and I need to
That's a
take it
big
seriously.
one for me. Yeah.
Whether
I
it's
can be like that.
yeah, I think,
Yeah.
but then we see actually we don't get great ideas that way. That actually it's so responsible and whatever good to have a softer thing about it, whether it's insights about our business or our health or our relationship or our children. That's when we like,
100%.
it's like the pressure is off and we're not thinking about it that much because it's not saying, oh, just stop thinking about it and you never think about it. You let it go and then good ideas come to you. Or just you would just realize, oh, that's not a problem or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
um,
I had that experience a couple days ago because I like I said, I don't know if it was last week or this week, but I had a day where I was anxious, which doesn't happen really. And then I started to go into why did that happen? Was it the music I was listening to? Did I drink too much caffeine? Was it and I caught myself doing that for a couple hours and then I was like, wait a minute. Like, so I catch myself a lot quicker because I used to spend months of my life being like, I need to get to the bottom of why I felt that way in that moment. And now I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, but who gives a shit? It really doesn't matter. I just did.
yeah, I know. It's sorry, there's a loud motors.
Oh, you're good. If it makes you feel better, I don't hear anything.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I had that. It was like a couple weeks ago. I was right here, like about to record something, and I felt anxious for a minute. And I went into the thoughts, exactly what you said. Is it because I had too much caffeine? Is it because I had a glass of wine? And though I realized thoughts, and it was, but before that, sometimes I didn't see them as thought. I saw it as helpful. Well, if I figure out why, maybe I'll never.
Yeah.
And it was like suddenly a red light or a light bulb that was like, this is thought and no thought is necessary now. And it was like, "Huh," and it just fell away like within seconds. Because I saw that that was just thought. And,
Yeah.
and like,
And it's so funny because we never do that when we feel good. It's not like I'm like, why did I feel joyful? Oh my God, what happened? Like, we don't ever do that. So I just think it's so funny because I realized what I was doing and I was like, what if I did that with everything I felt? This is silly. I just
I
realized it was silly.
but then when we can see that it's silly, because it's like, oh, I started to see, oh, it's not a problem. Like, okay, I felt anxious for that minute. And then when I stopped thinking about it, then I didn't. But I think it's like, yeah, sometimes I fall into that thinking of, let me be perfect. And what is it, and the brain's like caffeine, wine, you're getting up too early or whatever it is. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, what if it's all fine? And actually, um,
Same thing. Yeah. And same thing with business is like anytime my brain is like making something a problem and wants to get to the bottom of it, I'm like, we'll just let this go. We're just going to let this go. If it really is a problem, we will solve it. It's never a problem. Literally, if I let it go and I'm like, I'll come back to it in a couple of days. When I come back to it, it's not a problem. I see it differently. It was never insights will come in. I also believe I'm very spiritual, like not religious, but I believe in God very strongly. And so I just ever since coming to principles especially, I just realized like for me personally having an intimate relationship with God has been very helpful, which again is very non-dogmatic. I don't practice any religion, but other times I'm just like I can just God's got this. Like I don't have to be the one to control everything. That's exhausting. I just really feel like that I'm held and I'm supported and I'm cared for and I believe that synchronicities happen. Like me finding you're real. It's like I don't think that was an accident. I think God was helping me out. And so things like that happen all the time when you just stop trying to fix the problem yourself and you're like, let go, let God kind of energy or universe, whatever resonates for
Yes.
for you.
It's like so much more trust in ourselves, but in something larger, you
Hmm.
know? Well, and I love that. And even my mentor, Dr. Pettit, was sharing one of his clients was a mechanic, and he was talking about he had an insight around his job where if he was working on a car and there was something he couldn't figure out, he knew, well, I'm going to set that car aside. I'm going to go work on another car because every time I'm working on another car, I have an insight about that. And it's like we can see that the same principles apply to all areas, and yeah, and it's like I can just I think we can feel our state of mind too. It's like, well, I'm not having any good ideas about this, or this
Yeah.
feels like a problem in this state of mind. And yeah, and it's like I just even something had happened, and then I had a flood of insecure thinking, and then I was like, oh my God, what if my community? What if I didn't have it anymore? And then right there was like, well, then you'd start something else. You just see one-on-one clients, you'd start a new thing, and it was like I just don't get lost, I think, in insecure thinking anymore because I used to think
Yeah.
I didn't see it as insecure thinking. It was like, oh, this could be real, but now
Yeah.
the feeling really clues me in. And so it's not like, oh my God, I just never have an anxious thought about my business, but it's like, well, I just don't see them as true. And so I don't
Yeah.
spend time in
I
them.
don't,
And so I
I
don't,
like the word indulge. I always say I don't indulge in it anymore because I still have thoughts. Like a big thing I indulged in was in the beginning stages of business was confusion, right? Just chronically confused. And now occasionally I feel confused and I'm like, I'm just not going to indulge. And then after that, it was imposter syndrome, really bad. And now if I feel thoughts like that, or I think thoughts like that, I'm like, I'm just not going to indulge. I'm just not going to, you know what I mean? Like they're allowed to be there. I'm just not going to go into it like I used to and really like try to fucking figure it out, you know?
yeah.
Oh, sorry for the F bomb.
No, I
I'm
swear.
actually surprised I just made it through this much time without dropping an F bomb.
No, I always say it's not a clean podcast. So,
Okay, good. Yeah, I have a potty mouth.
oh, same, same. I do too. Um, I think it's a fine thing.
But but yeah, I think in general, I think the three principles, I just wish every entrepreneur or
Yeah.
business owner or even in the workplace, but especially entrepreneurship, because as you know, it's like a whole different ballgame. It's just you're not prepared. School does not teach you to think the way we think and live the way we live. I'm like, if they had their hands on this, like I just feel like so many business owners would be doing business in a way that was so much more sustainable and joyful. I saw a post today that was something like, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you just have to get used to the fact that you're going to have to handle 100 times more stress than the average person ever could. And I just wanted to comment and be like, and I had a ton of comments and likes, like, oh yeah, as entrepreneurs, we just have to be willing to handle it all. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, that's actually not true. I actually feel like I have a lot less stress than most people, but I had to learn that. I definitely had to, and the principles helped.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you've said a lot, but what would be your counter sentence to that post? If you were going to do, Cassie's post, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, get ready for 100 times stress, like, yeah, what would be your,
I would literally just say you realize that stress is caused by your thoughts, right? Like that's it. If you're feeling stressed, you are having stressful thoughts. That's all it is. It is not your business. It is not your bankroll. It is not your likes and engagement. It is your thoughts. And that is it. And so many people, especially in entrepreneurship, they don't realize that. So then they try to control every little thing, how many likes, how much engagement, my email open rate, my
yes.
everything. And it's like you don't need to.
Yeah. 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 I love that. So it's like recognizing the role of thought um in your because I think what it's so cool is this conversation, there's really no exceptions, and Hannah Studley is in Israel in a war zone,
Mm-hmm.
and so like she's not in a stressful state. I'm not saying she said,
I
yeah,
know.
sure, there was some times, but it's like, and I had a woman, Robin, on who had stage 4 cancer. And so, it's not like, well, if you're in a war zone, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have cancer, stress is unavoidable. It's
Yeah.
like, well, actually not, because there are some people, and I'm not saying we're not going to have hard moments. Like sometimes But actually, it's very infrequently. Sometimes I think, oh, it would be nice to go back to being a school psychologist, but it's only because of my thinking. It's only if I
Yeah.
think, and that's literally, I think I've had that thought like twice in 3.5 years, but it's right. I don't indulge it because I think to see that power that our thinking plays,
Mm,
and also underneath it is the power. Like, is that we can, it's not saying never have stressful thoughts about your business, but recognizing that we have the power to think in an insecure way, in a confused way, in a worst case scenario way, or in a hopeful way, in a creative way. And like just seeing the not the thoughts, but that it's the power to think and that we always have new thoughts are always available to us. Um,
yeah.
and sometimes it might be like, hey, I want a business coach, and maybe
Yeah.
even you could tell us now of like how people can work with you. Um,
Oh,
are you
um,
taking clients or what does your business structure look like?
yeah. So specifically, I mean, I don't, I don't want to like make this a sales pitch, but
I know,
I
it just felt
give this
natural is what
advice.
I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so I help coaches, consultants in the online space create 100K on repeat in their business. So really, I do a lot of this work in my business with my clients, obviously, but really I'm a business coach. So I help with messaging and strategy and helping them scale to 100K over and over and over again is what I do. So, but I just love bringing this into my work because A, I don't think a lot of people are, but B, it's just made such a big difference in my life. And I see my clients, I see them just creating results that are not even, the results are often better, but also more than anything, it's how they feel when they're creating it. Like they really do believe that the joy is in the journey, like not in the destination. And in entrepreneurship, it can be really easy to be like, that next 100K is going to make me feel how I need to feel. And like,
Yeah.
we let all that go. So, what was the question? Did I answer it?
Oh, well, do you work just with people one on one, or do you work in groups?
Oh, no, I have a mastermind, the Holistic
Oh,
Business Mastermind. Mhm.
oh,
And it's
cool.
called the Holistic Business Mastermind because it's literally like it's all about wholeness work, is what I call it. Really, just a lot of the three principles understanding, but also a lot of I like really combine that with the strategy stuff together because I truly think if you're going to go into business and hire a business coach, whether it's me or anybody, hire somebody who's an expert at or at least understand some of this, because whenever I work with clients who work with just strictly business, you will get caught up from your wisdom because you're going to learn strategies and techniques and tactics, and it's like you're going to lose your wisdom. Like you need that as the most valuable thing you have. So when you get too in the weeds of the strategy, it's too much thinking, and that's really going to mess with your business.
Yes, yeah, and I've seen that for myself, and that's why it's like I go because I've loved people that have had strategy. I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that, but then I have too much thinking. It's not fun and it's not sustainable, for
Yeah.
me. So with your business mastermind, can people continuously enroll? Like, could somebody do it anytime they're listening to this, or do you have enrollment periods?
No, it's open enrollment.
Yeah, oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's so great. Oh, I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, I think your business would be the perfect one for me as well, because I've done like the law of attraction and manifestation stuff for business, which I just like, I never follow through with because it's just that's like what I did dived so deep into.
Mhm.
I'm not knocking it, but it's like it also is just a waste personally. I'm not knocking it for anybody. Like if people like it, but it's like there's the simplicity of the principles. And then, hey, here's some practical strategy. And like I've loved it when I've had business coaches that are like, here's a like, but to me, just the simplicity of the principles is it in every area of my life. Where sometimes if I'm doing a visualization, like when sometimes I'm like, oh my God, this person has this on business. And I used to do that. And it would be because I love the spiritual stuff. And so it would be this law
Yeah.
of attraction, but then I'd be like, it just
But isn't
wasn't
this
my vibe.
complicated? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think business or strategy in general in business can also get very complicated when really it's just a game plan to get from point A to point B. Like my whole thing is simplicity. That's my tagline. That's everything I teach is like simplicity. Like this people hear strategy and I think it can really cause anxiety. Like for me, I used to be like, oh my God, this because there are people who teach very complex
Yeah.
strategy and funnels and all this stuff. And yeah, I could teach that, but genuinely, like, the simpler we make, the more money you make, and also the happier you're gonna be.
Yes, yeah. I know, and I've tried that too, like a funnel and this thing, and it just one, it doesn't feel authentic. And it's like I taught myself all of that, how to do these things, and then it always falls away. And I always go back to just simplicity. And
Yeah,
it's so sustainable to me. It's so and that's what I think we all want. It's like to just be in the game of life or the game of business or the like, and it's simplicity is it for me. And that's why I
yeah,
think principles, because my mind is the quietest. Also, I still have a noisy mind because that's just my brain. It's chatting, but like it's actually not noisy, but I still have thoughts. But and then I hear my wisdom and I never doubt, like, and I'm not trying to say this in a braggy way. Like I trust in my wisdom and creativity so much. I never worry about making videos because I'm constantly having creative ideas.
yeah.
About videos, like whether it's short form on social media or long form. Like, and so everybody has this wealth of creativity and copy to write and content. And when we're not bogged down with things that are unnecessarily overcomplicated, like I never would have thought that I'm good at business, and I am, and I like it, and it's fun, and I love the coaching part. And it's like, I think it's so, so exciting that you have the three principles understanding to business, because that's, I don't think if I had it, I would have started my own business, which is like a thriving business. Um,
If you didn't have, oh, if you
the
didn't
three
have the
principles
three
understanding
principles, yeah,
would have overcomplicated it. And I think I would have gotten in my head, oh my God, what if I don't have creative ideas for this? Oh my God, no, I'm a wealth of, everybody is a well of creativity.
yeah, 100%.
Oh my gosh, this has had such a great conversation.
Yeah.
So where can people find you? Tell me your Instagram and your website, and I'll put the links in the show notes too.
Yeah. So my Instagram is Cassie Biltz. So just my name. It's Biltz.
Okay.
Everybody spells it wrong. They always say Blitz, which is fine. You could call me Blitz if you want. So Cassie Biltz is my Instagram. I hang out there. I hang out on Facebook, but my website is being revamped. So I'm like, how do I give you?
Well, we can, yeah, you can tell it to me, or just if you want people to go through Instagram, it's up to you.
It's CassieBuiltCoaching.com.
Okay.
It's being revamped, but yeah, you could. I think there's some stuff up, but we are working on it. But anyway, my Instagram is definitely. I definitely hang out there all the time. Because
Okay,
where
great.
else am I going to watch all your reels from and send them to everybody?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I used to feel so cringe when I would know people in real life, but then I'm like, I got over it. And so maybe if people are listening and they are in business, like one that's really normal. And I think sometimes we're our own worst judge and we just think, it can feel vulnerable to put yourself out there. But and this was such a tangent. I don't mean to be like on my soapbox about posting, but like, when we're just our authentic selves, the thing that sometimes we might be like, oh my God, this is cringe. Like people love it or they don't. And that's okay. Like for me also learning that it's okay to be disliked or to people to be misunderstood. That was a huge one with social media,
Oh, that was a huge one. Yeah.
because sometimes you're just putting you can't say everything, even in a 15-minute video. But in a 7-second video, people are going to misunderstand you sometimes. And, um, and that's okay,
And
where,
when I understood the principles, I cared even less about what people on social media think because I'm like, they're just experiencing their own thinking. They're thinking thoughts about me. That doesn't mean anything about me. So I care even less and less the more I do the principles because I'm like, even if somebody commented something horribly mean a couple years ago, I'd be like, oh my God, I must be a bad person. And now I'm like, they're just experiencing their thinking. That's all that is. I just don't, doesn't really pertain to me. It honestly has nothing to do with me. It's their thoughts. That's all it
yeah.
is.
And also we
So
know they're going to probably forget about us too. Like,
yeah.
thinking that somebody says something and then they forget about us. And I think for me to see that content creators that I love, sometimes they post something and I disagree with it and I don't care because I really like them. Like I don't have to, people I don't know. It's like, this has been very helpful for me, the three principles understanding. Like, or also if I started to get insecure, I would realize I just need to shut this down and I'm not in the great state of mind to read this comment right now.
Yeah, that's true.
And,
Yeah.
and then I would like let that go, just using my feelings as guidance that way. But but seeing the fleetingness of thought and people forgetting and like not I love what you said, not indulging. Like I don't want to indulge in insecure thinking. But I remember sometimes even how also I'm not knocking any of this, but like you need to train your nervous system if you're going to post on social media or to be able to, and like years ago that's probably what I would have done, like oh my god, yeah, I have to be able to receive these negative comments or to receive the money. And it's like, or you could recognize the temporary nature of our experience. And when we're not resisting it, like, sure, sometimes I'm like, oh, when I have a bad comment, and then it's like, that's okay. And it flows. And I can
Yeah.
recognize that I'm harping on a comment and I can choose to let it go. And then fresh new thinking comes in. And it's,
Yeah.
um, so it
I
was,
went I went deep into that nervous system work too for a while. I was like, oh my God, if I want more visibility, if I want more money, like I gotta work on my nervous system. And now I just like, again, it just kind of fell away naturally. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'm sure there's a time and a place. Just this morning I was doing tapping, EFT tapping, but only not because I was fixing anything, not because I was like, oh, I gotta train my nervous system. I did it because it feels good. That was it. I literally had no reason. I was just like, this feels good. I was like tapping to music. I love doing that. But now I do it really from a place of like my intuition, my inner wisdom kind of guided me to, and it felt good. And I was like, this is so relaxing. I don't have an end game here. This isn't, I just trust the resiliency of my own nervous system. Like
yes,
I am so resilient. I
yeah,
don't need to train my nervous system to do what it naturally knows how to do
yeah.
as hard as I was.
Yes. One, what I know is when I was working to train my nervous system, I was actually doing the opposite because I
Mhm.
was so hyper focused and I was
Yeah.
thinking so much that to see like when I'm in a quieter state of mind, when I let go of thinking that's not serving me, naturally I'm in a more harmonious state. Like my nervous system actually is designed by kind of taking the pressure. Like I think our mind and body has the best inbuilt healing system. And
Yeah.
so also everybody gets to do what works for them. Like if something is making you feel good, keep doing it. For me, it just overcomplicated it. And I think when I saw the simplicity of I can have a reset if I have some insecure comments or whatever, like I feel this way, just as we get startled if someone like when your son's foot hit the like we get startled
Yeah.
without doing anything. We
And
return.
if your body needs regulated, I've learned I'll be naturally guided to do things all on my own, like the tapping, or sometimes I love fitness. I love working out. So I know that's one way that just my wisdom guides me. If I need to dance, I'll dance. If I need to move, I'll move. But I do remember that reminds me when the second time I started to have really bad anxiety and OCD last year, immediately that's what I did. I was like, it must be in your nervous system. I bought a course to like regulate it. And again, nothing wrong with any of this, but it made it, looking back, I'm like, wow, that really escalated things because I was so on edge. Like, am I dysregulated? What do I need to do to get regulated? How do I make sure that I don't get dysregulated? Like, it was not healthy. It was not good. And I actually, about halfway through the course, I did realize like I'm getting a lot worse. So I put it down. But yeah, yeah. I think if it helps you, let it help you. But if it's
Yeah.
making it worse, you don't have to do it because it's not, it can add more thinking, I think.
Yeah, but I love that also we're touching on and maybe ending on, there's nothing wrong with saying, wait, I learned this meditation and I love it, or I love tapping. Great. It's really the spirit that we're doing it in. I love fitness. I love
Exactly.
exercise. Um, I like getting a massage. Like, I don't know, there's probably other things that I do. But it's like sometimes it feels great to take a break from the gym. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, like I can't wait and this would be so great. Or I know like I love hiking with my friends. Like that's what I do every week, every Friday. And tomorrow we're doing a super long hike. And it's like sometimes if I have some revved up thinking, I'm like, I can't wait till how I feel after the hike.
Yeah.
And because I never want people to think, oh, I just have to sit here. It's okay
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
know I don't have to sit here and do anything. But when I understand everything that we've talked about, we're not broken. We're designed to go back into balance. We're free to do anything. And that can include anything. It's
I,
just,
I I love what you just said about this spirit that you're doing it in. That is 100% it.
yeah, yeah.
100%. Because
Well,
I'll even do hypnosis sometimes, but it's the spirit I'm doing it in. And if I do it, it's because I'm like, this feels good. I really want to. It's relaxed. Like, that's the energy behind it
yeah,
versus oh my God, something's wrong with me. I need to fix. Better do a Joe Dispenza meditation for 45 minutes, even though I don't want to, because, you know, now I'll do his meditations occasionally, but it's because like, oh, that sounds fun,
Yeah.
you know? So I think that's a great insight for people. It's like, it's the spirit you're doing it in. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Also, no one has to get caught up in the purity of the spirit. Like, of like, oh, because it's fine to be like, I don't really know. Well, that's fine. But I think
Yeah.
overall, knowing that you're not broken and there's nothing to fix, like then we're free to when we don't take it so seriously and we don't put pressure on ourselves, I think it just like something occurs to us to do. Um, Whether it's watch a video or just do nothing or have a conversation or shut down our computer. It's like, but also we learn. Like we'll
Mm,
see it. I remember a couple years ago when I was getting a little bit overwhelmed with business because I just started. And then I
mm,
had this idea, okay, I need to take a break. And so one time I took a break, I took a bath and I watched a movie in the bath. And I'm like, and then my mind cleared. So then the next time I
right?
was
Isn't
overwhelmed,
that the best?
I had, okay, you need to watch a movie in the bath. But I did it like, and I check, is it working? And then I ended up being like, forget it. I'm not stressed because I made it a technique. And so
Yeah.
then I remember saying, screw it, got out of the bath. And then I was like, oh, I have to take the bins in because there was the trash and the recycling. And so I took them in and then something was yucky and I was washing it. And I came back and I'm like, oh my gosh, my mood's gone. Because what happened was I just got present. And even
Yeah.
though I wouldn't have thought, take the bins in and wash the recycling can. Like, but because what it is we fall out of our thinking. And
Mm,
also, I saw that as I'd make something a technique, listen to a podcast and take a walk, and
yeah.
take a bath and watch a movie. Those are beautiful, but it's more helpful for me when it just occurs to me rather than I'm doing it with an agenda. Um,
Yeah.
and
And
I just, yeah.
on that note, I know we have to go, but that applies to business so much. Like, for example, this past week, I've been running ads for the first time in years, and it's the spirit that you're doing it in. And I realized about halfway through the week, I was really doing it in a spirit of this has to work. I need this like to happen. I need to get this right. I need to get them up and right. Like very much in that spirit. And then I caught myself, took a couple days, but the same thing happens in business with strategy. People apply a strategy, whether it's ads or a funnel, whatever. They don't realize they're doing it in a spirit of this has to work. There's pressure. There's just a lot of thinking, right? And then I just let it go. I was like, if I'm going to do ads, let's let this be fun. This is an experiment. This doesn't have to work. It's not that big of a deal. It's
Yeah.
really not. And then now it's been light and fun, and I'm not really feeling any stress about it. And the spirit in which I'm doing it has changed, which I know will change my results, not because of like law of attraction, but literally because my copy will be different, my messaging will be different, the way I create the ads, wisdom will guide me to just do different things.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I love it because when we're in
That's
this
what it'll be.
conversation, oh, sorry. Um, we get woken up to that feeling like of, this feels, and then and it's like, I don't know, you kind of get woken up
Yeah.
and then you fall into a clearer state of mind where it's like, oh, wait, I don't need to have this thinking around ads. And then more thinking comes like clearer, better thinking. And it's built into us, whether it's about our health or our relationship or about our business. It's like, we all are going to probably fall into some unhelpful thinking, but if we don't, it's so helpful when we see it and we see that's all
Yes.
it is. And we know that there's a different thing. Like I see that with my business too. And it's just, um, because I've started different groups and sometimes they haven't worked out. And then I'm like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
And it was, I think Judy Sedgman wrote a book, and George Pransky was her mentor, and they were going out and sharing the principles in businesses. And so, in one example, it was like their first business, and they went to lunch after, and Judy said that George was so excited to talk about all the ways they failed, like they failed in quotes. And she said that, like, oh my God, it was so good. There was a quote I wrote down and it was like, let me see if I can even find it. Uh, oh yeah. So she said, when we leave, George is elated. We go to lunch and he starts to dissect our meeting, talking about when the people were connected and where we lost them. He is absolutely delighted to discover our mistakes and learn from them. He laughs at himself for missing a couple of obvious opportunities. He has no thought of failure. To him,
Yeah.
It was a great learning experience. And all he can think of is how much fun it will be to keep doing this, happily failing as often and as long as it takes to learn enough to get a sale. Never in my life have I construed failure as fun, but George is persuasive. It starts to sound a little bit like fun to me at that lunch. Um, and then she had another quote: "This journey I am on is endless, I realize. Just when I think you can stop, you're good now. You get an opportunity to look again, look more deeply, learn." And I felt like that was what you were saying with your clients,
Mhm.
of holding those two things. And that's really like, I haven't had any failures because it's how I look at it. Sure, this group
Yeah.
didn't work out.
Yeah.
Video didn't work out. This launch didn't work out. Like it's having fun with it and not taking it all too seriously. Um,
Yeah. That's so I literally wrote a post about that today. I was like, the reason I'm good at copy and content is because I fail a lot. Like I literally fail every day and I have fun doing it and I learn from it and I do assessments. I literally am like that. I'm like, okay, I did this launch and I'll do a self-assessment and I'll look at what worked and what didn't. And it's so fun. It's so exciting to me to be like, oh, I kind of messed that up, quote unquote. But like I really didn't. I just learned something and now I get to go do it again. It's so fun. So fun. It's like a playground. Business is a playground and you get to just have fun. And
oh
it's
my
hard sometimes, but it's fun, you know?
yeah, I love that so much. Business is a playground. I have to write that down.
Like it is challenging. That's the way I describe it. It's challenging. It's like if you're on a playground, the monkey bars are challenging at first, but
Yeah.
it's fun and it's fun learning it. And when you get good at it, it's a freaking blast.
Yeah. Well,
It's like that.
I think, yeah, it's like the playgrounds can be harder sports. Like my son loves sports, like, and he's really athletic and he's really skilled at it, but he's learning, he's in flag football and he's like the quarterback, he's learning stuff and he's baseball. And it's like, it's fun. It's a game, and we
Yeah.
can try to get better. Um, and it's like life can be fun. Although I do want to honor sometimes it doesn't feel
Sometimes it
fun
sucks.
when
I know, let's just
I
call
have
it like it is.
a lovely client who was going through something and she said, "You said life is kind of like a game or it's fun." And she's like, "It doesn't feel like that now." And I'm like, and so I just want people to know we do hold space as coaches for times
One-
when it doesn't feel like a game. But there are opportunities where even if it's like relationships or yeah, a launch or a health thing, like not taking it so seriously truly allows me to access the wisdom and common sense that will be so helpful for real life situations. That's where we get our best ideas.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been such a pleasure. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to put it out there. I know people are going to love it.
Yay.
I'm
Thank
going
you
to
for
love you.
having me.
Thank you so much. Well, have a wonderful day and I'll see you in the community or on social media or just,
Yes.
okay.
Sounds good. Thank you, Lily.
So much. Bye.
Bye.